in time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I just
started. That's a good idea because Ting isn't going to be on.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I tried to sort of do, is summarize the stuff that was done on that WRF 5039 project without overwhelming people, and kind of provide some structure for how we would approach this. So do you see my screen?
Yes.
I will fix the agenda later on. I need to finalize it, but let's look at the content and just start with the that we have these three things that we're looking at, and that so far on UAIM we've really spent most of our time on processes and just starting on people, but we haven't really worked on technology much yet. And that overall the scope of WISE as opposed to UAIM is going to include the third column and the feedback because we get missions and goals sent, I can't, it's difficult for me not to put it in like diagrams that have to do with process control, but you get the mission and goals here, change management then impacts people, process, and then you monitor performance and go kind of in a circle like this. So then just mention that we've in UAIM focused on processes and that we've done these steps of the improvement methodology. And so when we look at technology, the idea at that 5039 that I had proposed, is that we don't just look at technology, but that we first have to, and this will not be part of 5039, but there's a part up front that says, if you want to look at something like technology, don't try to do it. You can't do it for the entire organization, but pick a process where you can see, because that's what happens anyway, is nobody looks at technology applying, like across the universe, but to a specific, so tying it to a selected business process, so that the first level of analysis is, what is this selected business process like? And that's not part of 5039. That's really on the business side, and that's going to be, that's sort of not independent, but that's outside of the technology domain. That you understand whether this process that you picked, how complex is it? What does it impact? How much do you know about it? Do you measure? How do you measure the process, the metrics, and how are measurements used for management and improvement? So the first look, if you want to look at as is, first you say, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? And once you have that, then you say, okay, what are the business needs, the requirements for that technology needs to address for the selected business process? What category of decision support you need? Are business goals that well defined? And how is performance measured and tracked? So we haven't gotten to the technology yet, but as we all know, they really need to be driven by some business needs. And then mention that the people side we're also looking at, and we have a whole set of things. So this is first was for the business side. Second one, we're saying we're doing people side. We already started. And now let's look at, the technology side and look at the beginning just at the assessment. And when we look at that stack, we would start with the ability, are we collecting enough data? What data is needed? How much do you know about the data? Where is data generated? and how effective are we currently selecting or collecting or generating the required data. Then to look at data management, whether data you can access it, is it well organized, is it reliable, is it complete? Then the third layer of that technology stack is analytics and insights, which is what kind of analytics and insight do you currently have in your applications, in your BI tools, and analytics that you currently use, and then the decision support. I'm sorry for this. The decision support, which is how much do you know and understand about the decisions? How well are you able to, how much do you know decisions that you need to make? What are your capabilities for situational awareness? So you understand your current situation, capabilities for action selection to, okay, now I know this, what can I do? And what are the barriers for improvement? So if we look at it, we have these 4 layers, right? Sensing, management, analytics, and decision support. So if we look at what we have to do for each one of them is define, requirements, goals, requirements. So the blue stuff is what the business needs to do. And then the yellow stuff is really what technology professionals do. So before you start, looking at systems, that it's always kind of driven by business. Does this make sense to you guys?
So far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go intentionally into the detail because I have a bunch of stuff under each one of these things. And then say that was for as is. But if you want to define a to be, define a new system, then maybe you start with the business needs and stuff, and you go and say, start from what kind of decisions you kind of make, and then you go back and start saying, what data do I need to collect? How do I need to manage it? And what analytics I do? Because I think that we go in a lot of times and start collecting data. We have no idea how this data is going to be used and stuff like that. So this would be a different cycle, also business driven, if you're designing a new system. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, stop if you could.
Yeah.
Somewhere in here, and maybe it's inferred, but there's questions that need to be answered.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure where that fits in. I'm following you pretty much so far. And just going back with what you just said, the data, what data do we collect? What analytics do we need? That all makes sense, but ultimately we're trying to get some questions answered. We're not just going through a raw discovery here. Oh, look, there's a pretty shiny thing. There's specific, there. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. Let me show you. Let me show you what I got.
It's there. It's just
Let
how
me
deep
show you.
you want to go.
It's there, but it's the first time I showed it, Yvonne, she had this kind of body language.
That's because she was so behind this, 100%.
And I said, Yvonne, what's going on? And she says, oh, this is okay, but it's too much. It's too much.
Oh, okay. It was
Am I exaggerating, Yvonne? Am I lying?
She tripped a
No,
main breaker.
That was it. I was like, nothing was really wrong, and I was just like, oh my God, it's like a lot. It is a lot.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've tried to present the high level of this.
Yeah, so this was just a high level because the detail level, Mike, is 96 slides.
Oh, okay. Let me do a Yvonne for a sec.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm better.
So, I even defined, on this, I included the questions. Okay, how do you assess? You pick like procurement or something. How do you, because eventually you want to look at, feasibility and risk and all that. And you say, okay, so there will be the first question that says, okay, who is included in this process? It is something that a person does, like this is how you calibrate an instrument or collect samples, or this is like a team activity like construction inspection, processing water quality samples? Is it staff and management from different teams, like review of engineering design deliverables? Is it staff and management from different departments, like process like CIP planning, asset, or something that's on the top of the organization? So you know what kind of thing you're dealing with.
So,
Right.
so Mike, what we, in doing all the improvement initiatives like CIP, let's just take CIP, right? Or
Yeah.
asset management, what we did the plan, do, check, act, we did the as is and to be, but we didn't really assess the as is. And so these introductory parts not only apply to a business process that you're going to look at relative to technology, but it applies to the business processes that everybody is doing in their own different teams, which we didn't really have. And this brings it up to the same level that we had for the people side, for example. And then we'll have the assessment questions under the categories that he's talked about for the technology itself too. So it really pulls it all together.
Okay, so I'll try this on you. I think our audience might fall into two camps.
Okay.
One is that they don't have any idea what they want to do with data analytics, or let's just call it technology, but they have a process. There isn't as is. And it could be what we've already looked at as an initiative from UAIM. It could be something else that's just not in the library, right? Okay. Right. Then there's the other camp that actually is applying some data analytics and or / technology, and what they might be interested in and appealing to their sensibilities and their experiences, they may want to refine it. Yeah. Maybe they're not getting enough out of it, or it's some difficulty in implementing it. Well, you can name anything. And so this is more of a comment than turning it into a question, but I'm just observing here. So
There's something for everybody. Right.
Yeah, right.
So, the first thing has to do, okay, how big is it? The second thing is, how much do you know about it? Is it documented? Who knows how to do this process? Is it in people's heads, teams, SOPs, and all the way to, sophisticated models? Then, because people are not going to know how to answer this question, I asked him specifically, what does your documentation include? Does it name all the stakeholders? Does it identify all the business units? Does it include activities and workflows, decisions and logic, data required for each activity, technologies and systems that support each activity, roles and responsibilities, resources, time to complete, artifacts that are inputs, artifacts that are outputs, metrics and that are used for tracking this process, and metrics generated by this process that are useful for other processes? Because I think that if people don't have this defined, really, how do you know that what technology you need?
No, I think you're right. This is very reminiscent, by the way, Scott, with the WSAA days and evaluating our asset management program and that's where we kind of fell, is not having a documented process. And this denotes some maturity here too, in seriousness, if you will, in that particular process and running it right and making it sustainable and all that kind of stuff. So this is very appropriate. I get this.
And typically when you have IT projects, you focus on what the functional requirements are, but you don't actually typically ask all these questions in terms of the context.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. That's why the projects go haywire.
Right. And that's
so
right.
This is actually the most detailed I've seen in terms of covering the whole gamut that relates to a particular process or area that you're trying to improve or design technology to support.
Right.
So
IT projects tend to be higher risk, and it's just we don't prepare or recognize that risk.
So everything here has this thing in the upper right corner, which means it still has to do with processes. Then the second thing is about business needs. Do you define the business needs?
Yep.
And for example, what category of business decision support do you need? Do you just need reporting on what happened? Do you need predictive analytics, or do you need
Now you're
prescriptive?
getting there. Yeah.
And this is currently and in the future. So we can start saying what if you're talking about calibrating a flow meter, and I mean, it's a different deal than if you say I want to fix my CIP planning. And then there are some questions specifically, what kind of categories you need, what is the definition of business needs? How well did you have them defined? Do you have business goals? What are your business goals? So that you can, and then when you say these are my business goals, then you ask them, well, how do you track those business goals? Do you have metrics? For example, you say, my goal is to reduce overall costs. Well, do you track the costs for this? Or reduce staff time? Well, do you track this? So that's all still on the business side. And then becomes the technology. So now we're getting into 5039. So and here we have on this level, we have for each of these things that I mentioned here, we have questions such as who benefits from who's using the data that's sensed, and are you collecting data for just individuals or teams, visual inspection, or you individuals within a team, saying, whether you're collecting information that's used within the team that's also doing the process, whether it's, different teams across the agency, who's using this, because we're still at sensing, right? The data that you're collecting, who's going to use it? And then, documentation about the data, who knows where the data is? And then, you can see that there's a lot of detail about each layer. So what do you need? Do you need real-time data? Do you need engineering data? Do you need legal data? What do you need? And then, the method and generation of data. Then this is, for data management, different questions. And so there's a lot of detail here.
Can you go back to that slide, the data slide? You've gone to it. Is it the next one? It's the one that you said, what data do you need and how it's collected? I think that's it. Hang on just a sec. Do you have anything there about sensor based? Yeah, you do. Okay. Real-time operation. Okay. Never mind.
I mean, this is extremely comprehensive.
Yeah, it just is a sample. I took a sample and it came out positive.
Right.
So you need a quarantine in your garage, Cello, for at least 14 days.
Yeah.
Well, he's got his garage set up, as you can see.
Yeah, I know, but if you've looked closely, it's a very spooky garage.
It is.
So anyway, I messed up my slide somehow, but it is what it is, and I moved things.
There you go.
So that's I'll fix this later. So those kinds of things, and then this is on data management, and this would get populated based on your answers to the previous questions. It wouldn't be repeated, just like it says on this note. And then you would say, where is the data? Is it paper records? Is it in like Excel files and Word files? Is it on shared
structured,
drives?
unstructured?
Yeah. And then you would say, how easy is it to get to it?
Right.
Now, the thing is that this is not supposed to be intended to be a survey. This is supposed to be something that will be conducted with groups, a series of workshops.
Yeah.
So
a facilitated session that has the people in the room that need to be there to answer these questions.
Yes, exactly. And then, it goes on, and then it goes to the analytics. and talks, like, for example, you can have analytics in some IT systems that you currently own. Like if you have real-time operational data and you have a SCADA system, you already have reporting and maybe even predictor, stuff in these applications, the analytical functionality. Or you could have it in business, in BI tools. So what do you have in house? And stuff like that, so that you can get what kind of analytical capabilities do you have? So you look at, and then the decision support is again, how do you have a list of decisions, major decisions you're going to be making based on this data? And then what is the impact of these decisions? Is it safety or security? Is it water quality and stuff like that? So you start getting a sense of why you're doing things, what is the impact, what is the risk and stuff like that.
And you've picked up in this that you have a 1 through 5 scale.
That's correct. Yes.
For each one of these questions. And so it's going to help you identify what gaps you have or help you evaluate that. So that's the assessment.
Yes.
So back to the data for a sec, and all that, it was definitely thorough. Do you also cover not only how easy it is to get to, what's the frequency of usage, and is it really just out there for reference, or is it actively being used in the business enterprise? Do you get at that at all?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
But the scope of the 5039 project tells us, asks us to put an assessment tool for how mature is that intelligent water system stack.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say, just get some first thing that's very different from what we're doing than what everybody else is doing. Everybody else has a survey that's filled out by a utility.
Right.
But we say you have to select a specific business process, and then you just do it for that business process. So it is, and it's not a survey, it's a method that includes these workshops so that you can apply it to, let's say, procurement today and not have to engage the entire utility, and then scale it up and move it, because when you do it at one, you have a vertical prototype, and then you can move it to other places.
Mm-hmm.
Because what utilities do is they bite off a portion that they're trying to improve, right? They're not trying to, hey, let's go improve the whole utility all at once. And so that's why the logic of taking a particular work process, and focusing on that. You could take a function, you could take if you're even use this to help assess different technologies that are being proposed, or look at it through a lens of GIS or CMMS or something like that. But really the focus is on business processes.
And then, then it's all the people stuff that we've done on UAIM that has, all that survey that you've seen before. So we've got that assessment tool that, that's kind of pretty comprehensive. So we've covered the processes, the people, the technologies, and what we're working on right now is the change management. And, so that we put this technology within the context, because in change management, you have monitoring that kind of allows you to provide feedback, and then you impact the workforce, right? Or processes or whatever. So, and then if you change one thing, it will impact all the others, which means that if you change processes, it will impact technology, organization, workforce, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, where we are at. And then the last section was going to be on change management, but I haven't had a chance to do this yet because we just started this thing,
But you got 97 slides worth there.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, Joe, you sent us a 30-slide deck yesterday.
This
And
is
this is
yes.
real bait and switch going on, and I'm quite
No,
impressed, actually.
no, because you asked questions, you see? That was,
I didn't ask long questions and your answers weren't that long.
but what I'm saying is I was trying to contain this thing so in something that in an hour we could get through. Because when I show just a portion, I got this. What will happen if I show the whole thing? People, will shoot me,
Okay, so your plan is to go with the shorter deck then tomorrow?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because it might be like that picture with the head. And like
Yeah,
maybe
that was
things
kind of
would just
disturbing, actually.
explode out of the head, maybe.
It's an infrastructure head.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that because Yvonne, one of the things that we're trying to do is, I don't know, Mike, I think I mentioned this to you as well. To try, we're working on changing the funding model for this, where we would apply for a federal government grant, and then we would show all these components and say, give us money to develop and finalize these tools for due diligence. So when somebody's asking for some of that infrastructure money, they can demonstrate that they've thought about processes, people, technology, and all that, and ask basically for funding for like a quote pilot proposal that we do in a couple of years, and provide so that, and then the idea is to get funding, not just that WEF would get money, but that the utilities would get money too. So that, like if Tim Noyes is working on this, so he could charge to some project number, that you could get reimbursed for, and the same for Yvonne. And so that, because, I talked to, a couple of utilities, and they, about these fees, and they're like, we're paying, for WEF, we're paying for AWWA, we're paying for NACWA, we're paying for, and then, Scott and Cello come and say, well, we got a new acronym. Can you give us $20,000? So we want to sort of get out of that mode. And we also, I think the good metric would be not just the improvements in the organization, but how much money, because we could call all these things, it would be WISE assessment, right? So these are all about assessment. But then the next thing would be the WISE investment, which means actually applying for the, you go back to the government, you paid us to do the tools. Now we're going to use the tools to ask you to give us more money to actually put this stuff into, put it to work.
So instead of a $3.5 trillion human infrastructure package, we're looking at maybe 4.5.
No, man. It's just that 3.5 is better utilized.
Okay.
It doesn't go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen that everybody's going to wait until all this is done before they're going to be applying for project money. But there's a good rationale for, this type of infrastructure as well.
In all seriousness, it makes a lot of sense what you're doing, and we're not at that phase yet. But even how to further differentiate this from what the feds might be used to seeing as yet another methodology, this could turn into something that in itself could be automated, if you will. Is if you go through this process, it could produce a model as to how to proceed.
Exactly, and we would produce guidelines similar to the guidelines for business process modeling. We would produce guidelines for each one of these assessments and says, okay, get the people together. First you have a business process model. You identified who's doing what your swim lanes are. Get them in a room, and all that. So, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to say back to the task. I mean, this addresses questions about, well, what is this assessment and what does it look like? But what's it going to be used for is improvements that they identify for a particular work process where they have an interest in.
Guys,
improving.
can you keep talking? I have to jump on another call. I'm already 5 minutes late. Is that okay?
Sure.
So it's thinking ahead to the meeting, I guess, of the team.
Right.
And, you know, the reason they're at the plate is not just to understand what an assessment tool might look like for technology. And in fact, what we've done is we've tacked on a front end to that can apply to everybody else's team as well. But they're going to be interested in, you know, and need to say, am I interested in identifying a work process, a particular process in my utility that can be, that I want to improve, and I'm going to go work on that, and I'm going to apply a methodology to it.
One of those 12 is.
Uh-oh.
We're in trouble. So,
But
Let's see if I have some kind of control here.
well, because
We do.
He
I,
muted.
I muted him.
Oh, good,
yeah,
good.
Cello's
I
on
thought maybe
mute.
somebody
Yeah,
had
we're
control.
good. We're good. You're on mute, Cello. So we're cool.
Okay. Go
You know,
ahead.
it gets down to what's the plan for the team meeting, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. I haven't been following, like, you know, this, like, what do they call it? Like sausage making process of like how legislation happens. And so I feel like some people have advocated for there being some like outcome performance being part of that. But I guess we'll see what comes to be. But certainly if that's the case, like, this is a very nice way to support that. Right. So, so what I think that he had some like Mentimeter engagement stuff in the PowerPoint deck, and
Some
which
questions to ask that kind
yeah,
of help
yeah.
get at.
I guess I'm not totally clear. I feel like a ton of work has been done, so I am kind of like, what exactly will this team be doing?
Yeah, I'm completely there too. Well, I'll share with you that I've known Cello for 36 years.
Wow.
And enjoyed working with him on things like this over the years. Call it the professional association layer. But what stuff like this really needs is a really basic roadmap. For tomorrow, for instance, we're going to talk about these 5 things, or whatever it is. And so it tunes in our brain and he's got it. He just needs to explain it plainly at the front, because this is a big fire hose that even in 30 slides, there's a lot there. Yeah. And then that would include what it is that we're aiming for, Yvonne, to your point. And otherwise, it is so much detail. It's kind of the decellotization process.
Yeah.
That he's got all the meat here for a complete meal. And if you're not a meat eater, you've got everything else with it. But it is, sometimes you get halfway through it, it's like you're processing what came behind it and you're trying to keep up. And if you're not part of this or immersed, you might lose it, and maybe even at risk of getting too impatient with it.
So one possibility, I don't know that Cello would like this, but
he's not on the call right now, so this is really good.
But you could take the slides and you could actually say, we're not going to talk about the assessment methods that's been developed. You know, we're going to deal with that in a future meeting. And what we really want to do is find out what you want to get out of this.
Yes.
Who's interested in identifying a core, how many want to just go along for the ride or want a tour of the sausage factory versus who wants to actually make sausage in their utility and get towards, you know, what is are you going to be identifying a work process that you want to improve and apply technology to, and have the discussion around that. And then the future meetings, you know, and now we're gonna have a demo in, you know, for an hour in on some future meeting that basically would get into the detail of this. But because I think you could get lost, people could get lost just with the simple version of this, frankly. You know, rather than what's the purpose of the team, you know, as opposed to what does an assessment method look like?
Right. You know, I think you're right on track where my head's at. I don't know how Yvonne feels, but I think it would be a great service if we could tell them that we got a lot of, if we take an analogy that we have a lot under the hood here that we've already done. It's pretty far along, and if he wants to glimpse it, that's fine. You know, but it really kind of comes down to it that we've got this car that it really, or vehicle that really needs to work for us to take this to the next level and get right back to where you're at, Scott, is the divide and conquer. There are people that'll be interested in all of it or maybe an aspect of this.
Right.
But if we identify that and got through tomorrow's meeting, I think that would be quite helpful.
Yeah, and I think that those introductory slides are good in terms of just saying, here's how this fits into WISE overall.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So
it all fits together.
Those
Yes.
first 4 slides or whatever, I mean, were kind of useful to give it some, you know, say, well, a little roadmap in terms of here's where we are and here's where we've been overall in the project.
Right.
But then gets at the other slides that yeah, I'd maybe take out. And there's an assessment method that's been developed. It's more than you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
That builds on all the past work and everything else. And we'll be covering that in a future meeting. But for this meeting, we're just interested in what you know, what you might want to get out of this. And you're almost in one of 2 categories. I think the slides it has, I'm not flashing up the slides now, but
right.
It kind of says if you're a participant and you're joining a call every other week and you just want to be on the bus and kind of learn as you go, then you can do that. He defines it as a core team. If you want to have a more active involvement where you want to take a work process in your organization and you want to improve it, and then we'll have an assessment method that we're going to be sharing and applying. And we want to get a feel for that. And I think there is a Mentimeter question or 2 that kind of helps get at the beginnings of that.
Yeah. I think you're on track with where my head's
That's
at.
where you guys are at, I can tell. And so I think, and he's fine. He's fine if you do the whole presentation and just, you know, you can ask Cello or myself, you know, to chime in if you like, but it's fine if you kick it off, you hit the first part, you guys decide between yourself. I mean, Mike has the background actually to know what these other pieces are, Yvonne, because he's been through them, you know. But you could actually do that, Mike, and then you kind of get into the other, and then he can administer a Mentimeter and that kind of thing in the process.
Well, I don't know whether I can take that on entirely. I don't mind though an attempt to kick this off. And there's one slide in particular that shows the 6 pieces of this.
Right.
And you know, that I can explain, and that's kind of gets into a little bit of the history of UAIN and what we've been building along the way. And but my intro will not be of any length. It will be an appreciation for the hard work that has been done in the past, and the literally library of resources that are original, not, you know, borrowed, that we've created together, that we're now trying to take advantage of it. Yeah. And in this instance, this is the technology advantages to it. Yeah, you know, I could probably work my way through it. My risk is that Cello will overarch, and I'm fine with that. because he'll add his own nuances, and I welcome that.
Yeah.
But
you're like,
we
I
are
am.
we
You're
are up
kind of
against the wall
you're a
here.
synthesizer, and actually, Yvonne, what you really want to do is encourage, input from others in terms of what they're looking for, and are they want to be, how heavily involved do they want to be, that kind of thing. So, I mean, if you like, it's up to you, but if you like, I could catch Cello later on,
I'm happy to put it in the chat for him to let him know what we decided.
Yeah,
How's
so why
that?
don't you do that? That's fine. But I can actually work with him to narrow down the slides so
Okay.
that we cut a bunch of that out. And then, and if you want to say, of the, so we could narrow down the slides and we could get something out to you tonight. And then when you look at it, in the morning, then you could kind of we could get on 15 minutes ahead of time if you like, but you could decide what do you want to do, are there slides you guys want to take? Usually with the first meeting, what actually happens is you have introductions because there's a lot of new people and not everybody knows everybody, and you don't want to spend much time on it because we could spend the whole meeting on that, but you just say who you are, where you're from, and what your interest is or something.
And to that point, Yvonne and I and Ting could be prepared to introduce ourselves, who we're with, and instead of, the what we do part, we morph into this project, put it in the context of this project. Here's kind of our general interest area.
Sure.
For instance, I come from, probably more than anything else, from an asset management perspective.
Mhm.
And so, our interest as a utility and my interest professionally is something along the ways of how do I optimize, what we're doing, and been after, and creating an asset management program is really the next step here is applying technology where it makes sense to what we're doing in our, blah, blah, blah. And Yvonne can maybe do the same thing. Yvonne, who are you with again?
I didn't say. I'm with
Who do you want to be with?
Yeah, right. I'm with WSSC Water.
That's right.
and we are-
Okay. We have
Yeah.
we got a great geography going on here because Ting's a West Coast person and, you're upper, yeah. So at any rate, there's more similarities and differences, but maybe something like that would help the audience. And I don't know how many we're expecting, Scott.
Well, it's hard to say.
I know.
It really varies, but Mike and Yvonne, what you can do is you can facilitate that introduction and in the engagement of the other people, and try to keep it so it doesn't take up too much time because we only have an hour total. But you could, and Yvonne and Mike, this is being recorded too. So.
Right.
So Cello's gonna get the benefit of our discussion, but
I forgot about that. That's so hilarious.
No,
it's
well,
all
he
good.
needs to.
It's
He'll
all
need
good.
to kind of skip ahead here, but uh-oh.
Oh,
I
there
think
he
he's
is.
coming in.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to say. So Mike and I provided suggestions to Scott. Since it's the first meeting, we suggest leaving a lot of time for engagement.
Yes.
An intro from the team leads, like involvement in UAIM and why. Introductions to solicit people's interest, or introductions from participants.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Mentimeter questions, and then your first 4 or so slides.
Yeah.
In that order, kind of.
I think you're.
Or the Mentimeter slides are at the end. I mean.
Oh, okay. Okay.
At
All
the
right.
end now.
Okay.
Because they get the benefit of.
Yeah. Okay.
The whole. So, and Cello's. Cello, you're on mute, but.
No, he's still in the call.
He's still multitasking, but I think he would be on board. So I think that that works. But what you might want to say you know, as the leads, is that you've had a preview,
Yeah,
96
sure.
slides long, of some pretty amazing assessment tools that are available to help, you know, basically with the identification of data requirements, analytical requirements, technology needs, and so forth. We're not going to get into all that today, but
But it's
that-
there.
but just know that that's there.
Yeah.
And but you know, and then if you want Cello to talk about on those first slides even, or you do it, you know, Mike or Yvonne, just on how this fits into the overall UAIM WISE framework, that's fine. You know, we could do that how you like. I know we're always saying the more that you guys can do, the more we like that. We want to support here. You know, we'll grind some sausage for you, but you know, you're the leads. But
You know, Scott, what I think we've done with Cello in the past, or I seem to have a vague recollection of me doing this with him, it might have been somebody else, is that
Yeah.
he knows this deck so well
Yeah.
that if either one of us says, hey, Cello, can you bring up that slide that talks about A or B or whatever,
Right.
and just, you know, just give us a quick overview, he can do that.
Of
I
course.
mean, he's random access on steroids.
Yeah.
And it takes him from, it relieves him from giving the next 5 or 6 slides. It's a summary slide as an example of what we're talking about with this particular assessment, you know, what it's trying to get at. I think that's possible with this deck, although each slide has its own nuances and
Well,
differences, but
if you
even
look at-
just sampling.
Yeah, if
know?
you look at 22 there, I mean, we were kind of talking about the need to do that, you know, forming
Yeah.
forming the teams, and there's a participant level, and then there's a core team level of engagement, and then it's
You're-
referring people to some questions and you know, some action items, and you know, with an introduction up front of how this fits overall, and then you're introducing, you know, that could probably work.
Okay.
Because we're still going to wind up with, you
We're going to
know,
wind up here.
yeah, we'd
with the-
wind up here.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's very appropriate.
Yeah, I think I think the slides are okay, other than up above, just taking out some of the content in terms of on the assessment tool now, and just comment. I mean, maybe could flash up one summary slide, but just say, you wouldn't believe, you know, how much detail there is, and the questions, and a rating scale, and everything else, you know, to assess an organization. But anyway.
But Cello just chatted. Did you see that, Yvonne?
Yes, he said he's going to review the recording, so that's perfect.
And I read into that.
Yeah.
I'll do
He won't
Well,
miss anything. It's
That'll
like he,
take him a while. That'll take him a while, but
Well, I read between the lines saying that I'll do anything you tell me to do.
yeah, no, it's kind of true. But yeah, and he feels strongly that you know, that we're here to support you. So,
Yeah.
and then it has action items for the next 2 weeks, and I think there might even be another slide or two that kind of says over the year, you know, what might we hope to accomplish. But
Okay.
so maybe that covers it for today. So you think?
I, you know,
And
we're
he'll
good on
tweak the
time still.
He'll tweak the slides. I mean, he'll basically tweak the slides and send them out, you know, by late tonight. I mean, you're in the Eastern time zone, so when you get up in the morning, you could at least see it.
Yeah, Yvonne, I saw that you froze. Did you catch the audio, what we were saying?
that he was he's going to revise it and send it to us in the morning.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I got the tail end of it.
No, that was the.
Well, that's
that was
what
the-
that's where we're headed. So,
Okay.
but so I will have a chance to talk to Ting here in a few minutes on something else.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
So I will let her know what's going on generally, and my hope is that Cello does send out the link, because she may have a chance to review it. Yeah, it is an hour long, but primarily, I'll point at, from memory, where where our roles come into play.
yeah,
So that it's going to be extemporaneous, and don't worry about it. I think Yvonne and I and Scott have it covered from a human factor standpoint. Cello, I think will morph into, where we want to be, which is not choking everybody too much with too much information. That we want to meter this out a little bit differently than what might have been envisioned. So,
Right.
okay.
Yep.
yeah, because we'll have an hour, and you definitely don't want to go long. You want to give people back their
Yeah,
day.
gotta get some air, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
And also, like, hopefully they identified interest in this topic because of sort of enthusiasm about this, and so I
Well,
don't feel like,
yeah, I think we have, it's tech, so a lot of people like it and are doing it. And I think that's kind of the easy part of it. But as we said earlier, there's risk there. If it's an important business process and you're just at the beginning stages, or even thinking about it, or in the middle of it, this will help you. And we need to
Yes.
know your experience.
yes.
Where your guys' heads are at, and because we're confident, I'm practicing for tomorrow. We're
Yeah.
confident that there'll be places, corners, and so forth of this particular track that you will be able to help share your knowledge and experience and participate and get out of it what you want to. So, anyway, just have to remember that for tomorrow, some version of that.
Good. It's on,
Okay.
it's taped now, so you're good.
Oh yeah,
So
we're
is
on
it-
tape.
it's
Why
at
don't we
1
just play this
o'clock.
tape?
It's at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, 1 Eastern.
Yeah, 1 Eastern, right?
Yeah.
At the moment, I actually have 2 meetings on for tomorrow. Do
Yeah.
I not need to do both?
There's the first meeting is it's a project team, like everybody from every team is invited,
Oh, I
and
see.
it's kind of an update
Okay.
on just the status of things, and
I
it's
see.
kind of a WEF is kind of in the lead, but
Okay.
Cello does most of it. So
Okay. Okay. So I don't really have to do that one. That's what I'm hearing.
no,
Well, yeah, that one's at 11 Eastern. Is that that's the one you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, that's the bi-weekly meeting. Every other week, there's a all hands, type of meeting, and
Okay.
it's usually in total pretty well attended, but not all 100 people are going to be on there. Probably 20 people.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, I need to log off for a 4:30. So this plan
Okay.
sounds good to me.
Great.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
See you later.
Okay.